Thank you so much, Lauren. That was such a great intro. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. GA4, big topic, and we're just going to kick it off here with some, as Lauren, I guess, mentioned, when I started to think of wrapping all of this into an hour, I myself could feel like, oh no, this is too much. It's too big to do like an hour session, to do it all. For one, things are still changing, and we're, it's a year out. This isn't in beta per se, but it's there's updates to happen still, and two, it's just a lot to it. So as Lauren said, we are recording. Also, some of you may have played around with this as well. Please jump on. Like if I'm missing something, in my time of day to day, I've spent, kept up to date on it as best as possible. But you, as the publisher with websites, and I have kind of a limited view with access to your account, you may have had some things too to say that I'm missing. So today, as I said, I wanted to keep it light and digestible. Some of you may already have it running where you've verified and you see in real time that GA4 is tracking. So I'm going to start with an intro, then basic setup. This deck will also be available afterwards. So if there's, I kind of do it in all of my webinars to they may seem text heavy, but it's really so we can send them out to you guys and refer back to that sort of information as I talk through it. And then some basic reports and custom events. These are out of the box. Of course, there's some things that Google has ready to go. And then what exactly are events, and I'll kind of make a little more sense in the intro. This is a big deal. I'm gonna assume most of you have heard of it and know what's going on, and that have relied on Google Analytics, likely UA or Universal, for a while. I read, and it might be one of these slides, that if you started GA anytime prior to 2020, you're likely running, the odds are very high you're running UA. And this is where we're comfortable and familiar. And and this is not like a refresh or an update or enhancement of the system of UA. This is an entirely new processing, takes into account those page experience signals in their new algorithm a little differently with engagement metrics. I'll also try to remember to pause. I can go on and on. But on the screen here, you can see the dates, a year, July 1st from almost this week. We are recommending you get GA4 running and tracking that data now, because there will be no historical data in GA4. You'll be reliant on exporting data out of Universal as you want it in this next year. There may be things like high-level trends, traffic, seasonality, things you can gain in, to export an entire Google Analytics account. Not sure what you do, don't make it overwhelming. As I prepared for this, and in the last few months have poked around GA4 more and more, it isn't as scary. And we're going to get about midway through this, and we're going to walk through the actual Google demo account. It's very helpful to just understand. It always seems bigger than it is, and as you get more familiar, even by the time I was ready for today, I was feeling a little more like, oh, I could click around in there and find what I need. And every single one of you can do the same. If it feels like a lot, and this is so different, I encourage you to take a deep breath. I had to do it myself as I panicked. But truly believe that this is a better system. As I got more used to it, there's metrics, and it's positioned in a way that I believe publishers will find very useful, as well as the insights and analysis that I do in my job for you. Any questions here? I would assume you drop it in the chat. Let's see, you will have access. So traffic to your website will stop on July 1st, 2023. You'll still be able to access that account for 6 months at least. We also all know and love how Google is with their timelines. It's another reason I wanted to let it sit a minute before even having this first training session. I've seen several iterations and changes just in the last few. All right. I had been in SEO maybe 2 or 3 years when Google Analytics took away keyword tracking. We remember that. So everyone panicked. That was more of a refresh to that system, but in the same sort of way where they're going to take something away. How are we going to understand the data the same? It went to more of a URL, I believe, instead of the keyword, it went to the URL, and you had to infer what keywords were really leading, but you could get it as sort of topically, which is how we teach editorial teams today, is to look at things from a topic basis. So this is another one. This is probably since then the biggest shift with this GA4. One thing that they are mentioning is bullet number 4, privacy controls. This is less, interesting to me per se. Cookieless measurement isn't exactly helping out on our side, but they're touting this one, that there's higher privacy cookie measurements. One of the biggest ones to me is some of the metrics we've relied on. Let's see. Oh, this third bullet. So getting in there and people aren't seeing bounce rate. And that's something as an SEO that I've talked to, spent tons of time talking about how to increase bounce rate. And it's not even available in the new one. Time on page, landing page report in the same way that it was before. So there's some just changes to what they're offering. In replace, you'll see there's an engagement metric given, time engaged, like an overall how engaged was the user on your site. I'll go into more of that in a minute, but so you can view it as, it's somewhat a replacement on what they're valuing, and a shift of perspective, right? A bounce rate segments out the amount of people that came and left in that sense. So it's showing you what people don't like, while these new engaged audience, and focusing on the set of engaged users and what's keeping them on the page. Why are they engaged? So kind of shifting perspective. They're providing a metric that will help you better provide for your audience, I believe. You'll be able to tie things together, such as, oh, I can clearly see that there's higher. This is something I just talked about in our video webinar a few months back. You'll easily be able to see that an audience that stays a minute plus or 2 minutes plus had a event conversion for watch video. So you'll be able to, connect in a way what you may think keeps them there. Oh, this campaign did really well. Why is this set of people staying 3 minutes on it? And I'll give you that metric. Website and app, data in one. I would love to work with any one of you joining this call today, and or if you're watching later, reach out if you have both, and are just many of the sites I've looked into, including the one that I'm going to demo, just have the website, and I know where the app data will be held, but to see it and see how that helps hone in on editorial and monetization strategy will be very interesting. And then I want to talk about the last one real fast. So this session-based, in the past, we've always thought of, right, a session and user metrics in GA are similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar in that it's set of, one's unique, I want to say, but they set one person visited your site. That would be a session. it resets every 30 minutes. Google will count it as a new session. One session, and that one set of eyes may view multiple pages. And that's kind of as deep as it's gone on, other than that time on site, on what they do when they actually get to the page. And in this new iteration of GA and this GA4, we're moving from thinking of that as just a flat session to to custom events, which is section 3 of this, and how we can better use that to understand the audience. Each user interaction is processed as a standalone event. And then what you'll see in some screenshots is that you'll be able to tie data together that would say your organic search, these group of people came in from organic search, and they view the highest number of events, which is on average, 5, let's say. And then when you dig into that events level, you'll see that that you can have a very granular level of reporting, and tell what they did, how far they scrolled, did they watch the video, did they register for a newsletter, things that you yourself customize and deem as important to your business. All right, so this is more for information. Okay, so setting it up, I went through the process myself on several sites. You likely started seeing that banner that you can see midway a couple months ago. We came out and said to continue to run both. And once you do, if you use this banner to go into it to set up, you would have it guides you through that process. So many of you are technically savvy that it's intuitive how you connect properties within any one of, done them all for Google systems. One thing that I wanted to call out here is that we will need, this is in the same GA account, a new property. And so before, when you came in from as a Freestyle publisher in onboarding, likely asked to share your analytics with one. I listed some examples of an analytics account. There's a way to mirror settings, if you're familiar with that, so that it can automatically share with whoever had access to UA will now have access to GA4. But if you can also just look at who you have given permissions to and find the Freestyle one and re-grant access to that. Especially for those of you working with me, and so many of you are, I just love how I'm like recognizing names on the screens and faces now 6 months in, but it's helpful from an audience development traffic perspective. I almost can't fully work with you guys without it. And then same with our yield teams and other teams that need access for that.
We pause. I was just gonna say, when should we pause for questions? I know we don't just have to use the chat. You can turn on your camera if you'd like to ask any questions or comments. Kind of a little break here.
Yeah.
No, okay, great. Awesome. Lindsay, great job so far. Keep going.
Thank you so much. I do see, let's see, chat. I may have answered these too.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. Oh yes, will you provide the deck?
Okay.
We will. We will be providing the deck and the recording for the person who just asked that, and to everyone.
Great. And also this is like raise your hand in that chat, maybe if you've struggled with this at all. Again, I don't want to go way deep into this. We're going to use it for we might have publishers later that say we haven't set it up yet. Many of you have, but this is kind of for reference there. It's very helpful to continue to use some sort of differentiator between the demo account, the UA and the GA4 version. By default, I believe they do a dash at the end for this new property name. I saw several where it was removed and I had to look and one versus the other, and you would probably have to do that as well as in your own organization, so keep them separate in the label. Okay, and then there was several, I want to say 4 different ways you can get this running. The setup assistant is very helpful. You can consider that almost like a checklist. Google's gotten better, as you guys know, over the years with the virtual assistant and the helpful guides that walk you through their processes. That's the screen you're going to see first, and the tag installation. You'll click there and it's going to give you a stream details. So if you have 5 different properties in your UA account, you'll see them all. Obviously select the one you're wanting to get the tag, and instead of, if you're familiar with the code, in the back end you will see a UA dash string of numbers. That's what we check to see that UA is running. This is a called, they're now referencing, if you hear this, a measurement ID, starts with a G. That's the set of numbers that you're going to need to get over on your website. Here's some, okay, so Google Tag Manager is just one of the ways. I was going to go through 2 ways. I think most of you will hard code it in the same way that you probably did others in the header. And I have a snippet of code here in a minute, but another option is Google Tag Manager. Here's instructions here. It's very simple, but you'd have to be using or set up Google Tag Manager. For somebody yesterday, okay, this is the manually adding tags. Don't remove the old tags yet. Again, if you do, it's going to stop. I've seen at least one property where their UA traffic completely dropped, and you're going to want to use that, or at least continue tracking for a while there. This, so leave both of them on the time if you're hard coding it to pages. There's that set. And then for WordPress, there's also plugin options to add this new code through things like Monster Insights. All right. So let's get, hold on, timeline, we could pause again. Okay, all right, I think we're doing good. And at any time, for one, I would like to say as we get in this, if there's a question I don't know the answer, we're writing those down because there's a lot we don't know. And then second to that, if after this you didn't want to speak up and you're saying, hey, I really am having trouble seeing it, reach out, just email us, email your CSM or me. And then the real-time reporting, which you'll see as I'll jump out of this and walk through. The real-time reporting was how, so yesterday I went through the process of getting one of the different options. It might have been just the WordPress plugin on just a different site. Within about 10 minutes, you can verify that it is tracking or hitting in the real-time reporting. So right away you'll be able to like verify that it is running. Right, there's 5 main sections. I'm just going to jump out of this now that will all sound familiar. Engagement, monetization. These are things that Google, as they build this user interface, you can guarantee that it's going to change. All right, how did I stop sharing? Okay, they may have. Bear with me. Let's see, I wasn't sharing my screen. All right, let me try a few things right here where I really need this to come up. Huh, this is fascinating. Lauren, do you see my presentation?
No, you stop sharing. So if it's up on your screen, just go ahead and go share screen again. At the bottom, there should be a green button.
Okay. I'm getting there because I'm going to go to the demo account. And then I'm back here. Sharing screen again now. Okay, thanks guys. Let's see. They had. Okay.
We're good. We can see it.
So this is it. This is where you will end up. I'll try to move this over there so I can see. All right. GA4 likes these widget boxes. I think in many ways we've seen this over the years as Google tries to provide analysis, predict results in traffic. And you see this here below. These boxes aren't from anyone other than prediction and will populate over time. As more and more data is collected, this is what Google's trying to do to sort of help you be able to maybe plan your editorial better. They may put together some insights on revenue as well. And you can customize these, but otherwise they will populate with familiar metrics that you kind of are used to seeing. The time on site, where the users came from, things like that. This is what I would do if I were all of you, because this helped me, is just to go and click through, like take an hour and walk through what's already there once this is up and running. What I'm going to walk through today are, this is all already, there's nothing custom done to this demo account. As we go along in our own training and learning, we will have a more advanced session building. I do go into building custom events in this one, but reporting. And there's a whole section of, what is it called in this? Maybe it's under retention, but it's reports of like a pre-run and populated reports that you can use. That will be in a later section. I know specifically that Google is still working on that part. But what you see here is kind of your standard things. There is nothing updated with traffic sources. Should be familiar with direct and organic. They compare in several different ways where the first point your customer came in at, which is an interesting angle to take. Is it someone who discovered you via a social metric? That very first touch point is calculated separately. Somewhat like uniques, I guess you would have tracked in the old one. In our heads, where we're trying to think how best to compare the two, but it may, that may be a waste of time, but it's kind of like where your uniques were coming from. And then, so great demographic, real time, you'll see right off the bat. This is going, if you don't see things load, it could be just because this is a demo account, but it's slow to load. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this isn't working, and it just takes a minute. And you will see things like you're already right off the bat, you're seeing right here, this is the event count by event name. So in real time, they can tell who's on there. And these are things you'll name yourself, but who's on the site viewing it, page like right now, scroll depth. These are things they've set up, who's viewing their promotional page. Let's see where my mouse is. This is some event count. Page title, which is new. I believe you could have maybe set it up as a custom event in the old system, but it's easy. One thing I liked about this is that some of the basic data that I would have had to go to a developer and ask for in the past to create custom event number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you remember, you could segment by source medium, custom events that you don't need the developer for several of these, the new data, which is very helpful. The page view, the head, like putting it by the page title. All right, so this is where we get into some of the more important things. And even through this, I'll monitor time, because if we don't, monetization, demographic, very basic, if I don't get all the way through there. But some of the more important reports that I think you'll find helpful are under acquisition and engagement. So again, I just starting at the top, this is what I have done to get more familiar with the platform. Overview. Almost every section here, I watched some of I may have, at the end of this deck, there's a list of resources. There's this girl that was so helpful in her material. She's an ex Google employee, I want to say, but she had worked on the project, and some of her videos are just as very digestible, where I learned some of this. Every one of these has this overview that pulls together the different informations in this widget style. So I won't keep repeating that. User acquisition, first user. Again, this is looking at the very first way they found you. It's so helpful with campaigns to know if that user had maybe signed up for a newsletter, so it's seen your site and then later came through a campaign. Feel free to interrupt me, stop me. And as you click around, some of this will, so engage sessions, that's helpful just to know. They consider it, you can change it. They consider it longer than 10 seconds on the site. There's certain methods you might want to go about specifically choosing yours if you feel like it takes longer for them to get to the crux of maybe the video and you can modify this. But an engaged session considered that. We know from viewability, I believe it's 3 seconds. So engaged, keeping the user, this would be the same as those that didn't leave right away in that bounce rate. Engagement rate. So you can get familiar, read all of these. Average time. Many of this looks scary, same stuff we've been dealing with. You can use this drop down for a deeper level of dimension. So we're used to hearing, calling it secondary dimensions. And then you'd have to kind of dig through that list of possibly custom things you set up, but you can looking around here, play around with it. You can go one level deeper. This can help with demographics for campaign reporting. If you're running direct with, wondered if the system may be slower with, let's see. Page screen, landing page. This is a good one. While we're on the page screen, and you see it again under one of pages and screens is under engagement. It's one of the most helpful reports or views. There isn't technically views in this new system, but pages and screen I found helpful to get to that landing page level. It's also where you'll see the host name come from an app or your web property. So if you wanted to see how many organic users were coming from your app, that would have been where you do that as well. This breaks it down by landing page. It's a little cleaner, a little faster, I feel, on the interface. One noticeable difference is that it didn't, and I'm trying to wrap my own head around how to best communicate this. For user acquisition, there's first user, but then you also see a breakout that in the old system, there's one acquisition area and you have overall traffic. This is like the doesn't have to be a unique, like a user data. They say they're, repeat. This is more of a total. In this search bar, might as well call that out. So let's do one. If I want to find, I'm first going to go to the page level. It's one of the most helpful areas for editorial as you're, and this is in the old system as well. You would break it down by landing page. And then the search bar would be, it's much more intuitive than the last on, let's see that. On, see how I did that? You would have to do the filter and you would do that match where it had to be containing the, would have been, I guess in this case, the medium would have been containing organic search, and it took a minute. And in this, and I saw it called out on multiple different training tutorials, is that they really enhanced this search bar where you see me right here. Look at that. The search bar where it's not even coming to my mind that it was probably in the old account, in the old system, but that they really put efforts to make this run by, it even says AI. If there's, or like you can ask it questions in that form. That's really cool that they, and then this search bar, all I did was type in organic and it pulls more, and it pulls and segments the organic search. For those using UA, it must be just like the basic UA. There's sampling issues where I even in real time, you'd look at one screen and there'd be big discrepancies between what view you were on and the sampling and how that impacted it. This is supposed to have very close to no sampling as long as it's under 1 million of something, be it it wasn't something small like page views. It might have been like terms. So hopefully accuracy is a little better as well. So you take that off, simply maneuver here. And then user acquisition, it's very similar, but by that first touch point here. Engagement has an overview. And then we get over, let me get to events, which I do have slides for, but I might as well, let's just continue walking through. Some of these engagement. So Core Web Vitals came out last August. We all talked about CLS and the mobile experience. All of the trends of Google, it's been kind of headed in that direction since probably 2015 at least, or mobile. And then Core Web Vitals was speed, but the other part of that was, remember, they looped it into the page experience algorithm. So they switched there's been a lot of change on Google's part. Google Search Console, if you're not in that a lot, it might be different than the last time you checked. They've enhanced the insight that you can gain there a lot. People like me appreciate the effort, and I'm sure you as well, to see the data in a deeper level there. So the page experience algorithm has a lot to do with engagement. It's why over the years we've talked about creating a better user experience, even down to readability, and doing things like increasing font size and spacing out things and adding images. You want your user to essentially land on that mobile page and love it and stay there and scroll and scroll and scroll. So there, that tells Google, right, that it's a great experience for the user. They're going to, over time, use those metrics to lift you or favor you in the search results. And so it made perfect sense that engagement was just as much a part of this one as the last. And you also see conversions. So events. This is where their attempt to take it from that flat session we're reporting on these high level metrics. And I will pop back over to my slides. I have a kind of a diagram where they have it laid out, but it was based on the amount of feedback they got. And this is not a new product, it just launched. You can imagine it's taken years for them to build, but based on the feedback of how much more webmasters and publishers of big sites, enterprise publishers, wanted to know and understand about their users. So all of a sudden it wasn't like, okay, I had this person and yes, she viewed 4 pages. I can see what kind of content she likes on the site and she stayed a minute, but past that, I can't see what else she did. If you remember how many, I've been asked in over the years on how many people clicked on that outbound link from that article. It might just be something simple you want to track and know who has interest in, who moves along, or maybe signs up for the newsletter after if you do a prompt in the middle of the post, and to really understand where, say you use it for A/B testing, to put the newsletter module at the top of the page versus the bottom of the page, and you can track that level of user events, what they do on the site right here. I think I don't have access as demo account. They're not going to allow anyone to just sign them up, but this is a good idea. This is a good example of the different things that they track. There's 5 out of the box events that are tracked. So page views, for example, you do not have to set up page views. That's a main metric. And one that's set up. When I pop back to the other screen, I'll list it, but these are something, look at the level that you can get. E-commerce. I'm going to tell you right now that if you are deep into the e-commerce side of things, continue to use your version. Don't switch yet on some of the more, you've set up some advanced, probably tracking and conversion events through that. Keep using there for the moment. But even on this level, viewing the cart, who left the cart after a certain amount of time, all of these can be set up. If you're wanting to see who not only started the video, but watched all of the video, remove the cart. There's some great e-commerce scroll depth, that being able to be tracked. And then say from that, you have like 2 KPIs. Usually if I'm involved in the conversation, we're talking about trying to increase page views and traffic and audience, because of course we're trying to increase revenue for you. But that might not be your only main KPI. Internally in your business, you might have a team that's really interested in newsletter signups and how much your newsletter program is valued at, and you can work through that, where you, let's see, conversion event name, it may not, so let's see if I move this, it's a toggle, you'll see it in your systems. Is basically, it might be back on this event where you change an event by marking its most important into a conversion. So you might have, it's fine that I don't see it, but you will see it where you have the chance, likely if you had the admin access, to set up the event, to toggle it, and to say, these are the 2 or 3 main metrics I want to track my conversions over time. This could be a campaign. If you're running sponsored content, looking for that extra level of reporting, it's a great way to track that. Things within that article as an event. How many clicks went over to the brand in the sponsored link? How many went to product posts or whatever it is they are paying to recommend? Pages and screens. So several here, you can kind of get an idea of where the user went, but mainly what I liked about this one is it was you can right here, rows, easier, a little smoother to select longer. But if I did not show you, let me move this. The date is up here on the right. I'm there now. It looks a little more complex. It's really just the same options that were in the drop down before, except for these newer ones. You had to manually go back 12 months, and you could do year over year. Compare toggle is right here. One of the I use nonstop, I'm sure you do. Same period, matching the day, some of this stuff. You have your custom option down here. Let's apply it. And from that, it begins to look as familiar, look similar to what you're used to. This is that secondary dimension. It used to be, I believe, up a little higher up here, and there was also that filter bar over here in the old system, which is now right here, search bar, showed you before. It's consistent throughout. So again, if you leave this meeting and you say, okay, I'm going to get my GA4 running and at least tracking, use the deck, all the instructions, see that, and then walk through it just as I have. It's the same. So by the time you get down to pages and screen, you're like, okay, I want to see where the user came from, and you're not going to break it, and you want to see, their first touch point. Again, if it loads like mine, there's still the issue, might as well call it out. Nothing that I could ever do about it. There's still the issue of the untrackable and the direct, and not knowing fully what is there. Also not having a source listed because maybe it came in through like an untracked social source. There's still going to be the same mysteries, and if not more. I mean, I think I read a case study, Ahrefs, I want to see, some of you may have even seen it if you're kind of nerd like me, that they had done a case study, and a large percentage of their clicks when they installed some of their own tracking weren't reported in Google systems. And in Google, it was Webmaster Tools, I want to say in this case, but we all have to use data directionally, in a sense, for what's good for our business and what users value, and not be tied to these exact, to all of these being correct at all times. And them not tracking doesn't mean that your user is not there, and to continue to. Some of this gets into e-commerce again. I'm going to pop out here in 1 second to go back to the slides. Demographic overview. Tech, this is where any app data would be. I mentioned in the beginning, so if you're running it, you'll see if it's only web, it's only that displayed in there. Demographics, largely the same, but by these overview tabs, I would say, I would compare it to, I bet they took whatever in their own data, remember, right? Like they're tracking internally, whatever people went to the most, they just put into widgets. Because I almost feel like some of this stuff that's auto-generated was, where's device type? We'll have to find that one. For the most part, I don't know why these aren't actually adding, but it was what you'd usually look for. GA is never going to be your deepest level of audience data that you can get. It's designed to be high level. Let's see if I go into one more here. This is location more. Device type is one. I tend to use, and hopefully as time goes on, they're obviously fix some of the what's not populated. And this is the one they gave us to their merchandise store. I can guess it didn't have the most amount of traffic we're looking at here. Tech overview, and then I'll pop out. This is some of the more technical details. Okay, okay, so users device, let's see, device type here. Demographic, it wasn't there before. That makes perfect sense. Under user, it is under tech. That's where you'll find device type. This is again, I believe they're exposing the data just at a deeper level, and that us over here, including myself, are immediately not like overwhelmed by how much is here, but it really is likely what you were filtering for before. All right, let's see if I can go back now. I'm going to do this without not sharing. Okay, so I know you can still see my screen. I'm going to go back here, pop it back inside, show you. And now you'll have an idea of actually, this is what I was talking about before. So they're taking these event types, and this is how you would set up a custom event. Each of you will have, when you are the owner of your account, a very clear button that says create new event, then you set your own parameters in the same way as you would in most applications where you're selecting, you're going to name the event. This one in the screenshot was pulled from Google. It's obviously a screenshot that's tracking page views, but only page views. So you'll have that if and, filter drop down where you're saying so page view is equal to this location. So basically saying in this one, tracking how many users, this is an event. They're setting up one event, they name it, subscribe, and they're viewing how many page views went to that confirmation page of subscribing. This says, thank you for subscribing for your email. So that's what this one tracks. Out of the box events. So these are the ones, which is a few of them were interesting. Outbound clicks. I love that was out of the box. So you'll be able to see and filter tracking immediately for that. Site search, which is good. I guess if they put all of the enhancements into it, you as the user would want to track your own site search and use in details for your site. Video engagement, file downloads doesn't apply to anyone, but may apply. And scrolls. This one, I believe it's past above the fold is where it sort of marks that. Although, because in the past there's been, it's kind of harder, more difficult to set up scroll tracking. I appreciated that one was out of the box. Then, and let's see if I did it here. What you'll see, and this was a screenshot because I didn't have it, create event, it's on the left there. And then configuration on the right, where you're making your own events. It's very to whatever's most important about your own business. You name it, you'd say in the drop downs, kind of page location, they're intuitive. You'll be used to seeing that page location saying the event triggers, this one on the right there, triggers every time a page view hits that about page of her site. So that's a good one. How much that's getting. All right, these are all examples. I walked you through this in real time. I think this is about it for this first one. So much of it, again, out of the box, get it running, let them both continue to run. We will circulate this deck as well as video but so much, you guys, that Google makes available. Their YouTube channel, the very last link there, I used a lot over the last 6 months in just different questions that came my way on this new account. So spend some time in it. But even if you do the bare minimum, even if you don't, and will happen if you don't have the bandwidth at the moment to set up some custom events, know that much of the basics of what was tracked before is tracked and running. And second to that, what helped me most was really just clicking around again and getting used to how you do secondary dimensions and filters. All right, let's see, setup details. I'm gonna pop and see if there's any chats. Okay, great. Lauren looks like she shared there. All right, I'm going to say any questions, any last questions? We will again get this circulated. We appreciate your feedback. Also for the next one, this was intended to be kind of what's there out of the box, how to get it running, and a little bit on custom events, but there's more coming. And if there's a specific spot as you're digging into it that you're like, that you need a greater team, let's do it. Send me your feedback and we'll specifically dedicate a section to it moving forward. This is not a change we can avoid, but I think if you stay positive and truly just trust that the data is provided will be able to inform your business decisions, we will all be fine as we move forward into the future of analytics. And yes, thank you. It is. The links are all in the slides. The last slide is the resource one. It's the last link. Very helpful. These are like 2 and 3 minute videos. All right, Lauren, what you think?
I think that was great. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and for bearing with us during our technology glitches. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. And also just don't forget to, join our workshops that we'll be having monthly.
Thank you guys so much. See you soon.
Miro, are you still here? Yeah, Miro, stay on. I'll make sure to get your question over to Lindsay here via email.
I am here, yes.
Okay, great. I think Lindsay dropped off. Let me shoot her this question and let her know to get back to you. Does that work?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.